Good morning, and welcome to another Semen Retention Sunday episode here on the Regal Change account. So why are you scaring people and intimidating people on semen retention? It's like you're shattering the perception that they have of you. Always. It's always happening. You don't know why, because for you, maybe it doesn't feel like too much has changed, even if you're just a couple weeks in, right? Or even a week. Maybe even just a few days. But you're feeling this perception of other people is changing, and not only your perception of them is changing, but their perception of you is changing. And it's almost like what I call a timeline lag. So it's an integration timeline lag where you're actually becoming more aware, but it's lagging in the physical world, whether it's with your psychophysiology or it's with, other people who are noticing something's different, but they can't quite pinpoint what, because you're not going to just tell them that you're a full sackian man with a full sack. You're not going to just, and they're not going to say that or know that really. They're not going to say, hey, are you the guy with the full sack? And it's not going to work like that. But I'm going to show you here in a moment what actually is changing on semen retention to make you more scary or intimidating to other people. Because the fact of the matter is that we live in a society where the tendency that everybody has is to be weak in reason, be weak in their will, and be a quote unquote realist. They're not ignoring reality and having fun. Okay, so they live in the universe. Okay, and to live in the universe, you really need reason and will. Like there's a systematic approach to the divinity of this plane of consciousness, and it primarily operates on reason and will. Okay, however, this is the you and I verse, so to speak, right? This is kind of a play on words here with the universe, but it's a you and I verse. It's a singular universe. Now, the multiverse, if you want to live in the multiverse, which on semen retention, I would say there's not like a specific day count, because a lot of people I want to know which day do I get the benefits? Which day do I start to do, become more of a godlike mastery practitioner? When do I get a full sack? It's not going to work like that. It's a process. And this is something that brahmacharya, for those that are not familiar with the term, brahmacharya is not really just an act, it's a way of being. And it's not just a practice because you want to try to quit corn, right? But it's actually tapping into something deeper in your spirituality. It's about using and optimizing your vessel and treating it as an asset to prioritize and optimize, rather than to see yourself as a liability to just kind of manage, right? And for those Regal Change old timers that are familiar with my work, you'll know that I've been talking about this more and more recently. But to live in the multiverse, where you're living on multiple planes of consciousness simultaneously, you need to learn how to have fun ignoring reality. So in the Regal timeline theory, there's a difference between that which is true and that which is real. So that which is real is not always going to be true, but that which is true is always going to be real. So the truth and reality don't actually always co-align. So what does that mean? Well, think about all of the delusional people in the world. Okay, I was going to say it's not easy, but it's not hard to think about. It's not hard to think about all the crazy people in the world. So truth and embodying the truth is actually, it's very simple, but it's quite difficult, because as human beings, we find the most simple of things to be the most difficult. And in reality, to live in reality, to be accustomed to a delusion is actually quite easy. It's very easy to be seduced, kind of like by the dark side, you could say, right? It's easy to live in degeneracy because there's no responsibility and there's no discipline. This is something I've thought about a lot recently about discipline is, discipline, if you're just participating in discipline because you want to you just want to be more disciplined, that's not going to be inspiring enough for you. Like people have come to me in my Godlike Mastery offer, not so much, but in the Regal Academy or one-on-one sessions, because people in the Godlike Mastery offer that I have they're more fine-tuned enough to where they're just looking to excel and really compound upon their initiation. Like they've already been initiated to some degree into the mysteries of life. Now it's about optimizing and capitalizing on that. But, when it comes to my one-on-one sessions or in the Regal Academy, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, people will try to ask me certain things about, how to get more motivated or how to have more of an action plan that they can follow. And it's like how do I not be as lazy, or how do I not be as this? Or it's like, you're not lazy because you lack motivation. You lack inspiration to be who you want to embody. And then that's why you're lazy. That's why you're not actually doing and being who you want to be. You have no inspiration. You have to put all of your emotions into the totality of your being. Like, think about it like this, right? Last night, I slept extremely well. One of the best nights of sleep I've had in a long time. Why? Why is that? Because yesterday, all that I did all day long was do things that were going to better my own personal skill sets and growth. Skill sets compound over time, because skill sets, the more you're developing a skill, you're going to be living more in the truth. Okay? You don't need skills to live in reality. You need skills to live in the truth. And that's part of the discipline. Now, when people come to me and they ask about how, they can get a longer streak on semen retention, or, how they can do this, it's like, well, what's your inspiration for doing this exactly? Why are you doing semen retention? Because here's the thing. The reason why you will become more scary and intimidating on semen retention is not because you're just practicing semen retention. It's because of who you are embodying from the practice. You are abstaining from degeneracy. You are cultivating more of a creative, artistic, lively, zestful, serendipitous, and virile aura. That's what is changing. And people don't know how to handle that. Like people don't know how to handle you on semen retention because you're living more here in the truth and not so much in reality. Now, you might say, well, isn't that going to make you crazy? It's like, well, what makes you think you have a mind to begin with? You kind of have to lose your mind in order to be sane. Like something I've talked about in my book, the Book of Oldishness, is how in order to discover sanity, you have to be in sanity. Okay, so what I mean is, again, it's kind of another play on words, but it's more about how can you, as an individual, can you recognize that you don't really have a mind? Like the mind itself is really more of a projector screen of consciousness, more so than it is, actually a thing. Like, yes, we have a brain, but I differentiate between the mind and the brain. The brain is part of our psychophysiological system. Like, have you ever been in a meditation and you're in a meditation and you're sitting there, with your eyes closed, and you still think that when you open your eyes, you're going to be in the real world. Who is to say that when you close your eyes, that's actually not the real world you're looking at? When when you close your eyes and there's that not quite dark, but subtle glow to the back of your eyelids, and you can make your gaze very wide, and you feel your body resting in the space of totality, and you can feel your consciousness growing and growing and growing and expanding all around you. You're more aware of everything. Who's to say what part of reality is the truth? Well, it's going to be a matter of empirical fact. So you have to experience it. And this is one thing about semen retention. When people come to me, and I'm very grateful that I'm speaking to more of a high altitude level of individuals in the spirit of the time, because I don't really want to deal with people that are kind of at the starting point anyway. I am the regal shamanic alchemist that people go to when they're ready to refine themselves. They're ready to go deeper in a way that they've already done a lot of work, but now it's about the ultimate refinement of the body, the physical domain, the emotional domain, and intellectual domain, as well as the spiritual domain. And this involves understanding reason and will to a large degree, but cultivating that more. And then learning how to have fun ignoring reality. Now, what do I mean by that? So that when I talk about truth and real, that which is true and that which is real, you have to learn how to ignore what is quote unquote real. For example, Alexander the Great. Do you think Alexander the Great, who was 20 years old when he looked across the land and he said, you know what? I'm deciding that this is mine. I'm going to go conquer the world because I choose that, this is mine. The dude was 20 years old and he died at 28 years old, and we still know his name today. Why? Why do we know? And I'm not saying that you should want your name to go down in history, but why not? Why not? If you can, great. Why not shoot for that? What else are you going to do? And a lot of people have, and look, there is nothing wrong with living a simple life. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with, being nobody special, because the fact of the matter is none of us are anybody special. That's the paradox of the spiritual journey. Once you are able to see reason and will in the universe, and then you learn how to move beyond reason and will into ignoring reality and just having fun, then you start to see okay, well, now we're living from multiple planes of consciousness all the time. So what does that mean for me exactly? What do I do with life? If there's no meaning to life and yet everything's meaningful, what do I do? Because that's the ultimate point that you get to on semen retention. Semen retention is not about abstaining from corn. Okay, a lot of people are that's the starting line for a lot of individuals. They're how do I get more chicks? It's not even 8 o'clock in the morning and they want to talk about chicks, right? It's how do I get more chicks? How do I get more money or this? How do I manifest these things? It's that's the wrong question. The right question is more about this. The right question is more in regard to your narrative structures. So what is the narrative structure on your timeline? Because the narrative of your own inner being, a lot of people don't even realize that they have an inner monologue. They're just thinking their thoughts all day long. They don't know how to actually have a monologue with themselves. As soon as I wake up, my mind will start to race, don't get me wrong, but I'm aware that I have a monologue. because you can't stop thought. There's no way that you can stop thought. But what we can do is let go of the who is thinking, okay? So this is where semen retention actually gets you, is to realize your own inner narrative structures and what you want to do to move beyond them, okay? Because ultimately, if you don't recognize your narrative structures, you can't lose and move on from the timeline loop that you're on beforehand, and move and create a new timeline. There are really two ways that you can move beyond a timeline that you were on beforehand. And number one is you can eat the old timeline, and digest it. Or number two, you can just let it go. See, and this is another reason why people who don't have reason, will, and the ability to ignore reality and have fun doing so will find you intimidating or scary, is because they know that you're becoming a more powerful being by doing these three things. When you know how to do these three things, anything is possible. And you understand that the only reason that there's reason, will, and the ability to have pattern recognition at all is because of the soul of existence. Like the soul of existence, God, is the reason for why patterns exist at all. But it's something incomprehensible, like it's unfathomable. We can't really fathom the unfathomable, but we can describe these concepts of what they are. So this is going to be a video for you that if you are here, and you are resonating with this on a deeper level, because I trust that everybody who is, watching this to its totality, they're going to come away from the video feeling very refreshed, refined, and ready to actually apply these three things. Because if you don't know how to apply reason, you don't know how to apply will, you don't know how to ignore reality and have fun. So because you have to learn how to invest your attention appropriately. A lot of people invest their attention into entitlement or scarcity. That's another reason why people fear you. Because, and I'm not trying to say this because like, ooh, you need to be feared. Like that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like, the reason people fear you is because you know how to harness these things. You know how to lighten yourself. Basically that's what it is to be enlightened. And I'm not claiming enlightenment because I'm not a free being, but I am free enough to be emanating sovereignty to the best of my ability because I know how to have fun ignoring reality. And that sounds crazy to certain people that don't want to have fun, people that want to be realists. I was a realist and it got me nowhere but unnecessary suffering, like perpetually. But as soon as I learned how to have fun ignoring reality, all of a sudden it's like I can use reason and will in this domain of consciousness as a way to manifest what I want. And I don't like to use the term manifest necessarily. What I like to say is probabilistically actualize. Because basically what you're doing is you're increasing the probability of actualizing that which you want to happen through reason and will by ignoring reality and having fun. So, with that being said, I trust this message reached those that are ready to receive it. Apply to the Godlike Mastery offer or join the Regal Academy. I have the Art of Seduction class available until September 6th in the Academy, as well as the 48 Laws of Power, which are being updated consistently. I've got the first 8 laws available to review and go through on your own time. The classes that I have in there, like shadow integration, anima integration, they're very practical. Some of them are very practical. Some of them are more in-depth. I do have a Lord of the Rings class for psychological transformation as well in there. That was more like, I don't know. I really love the story, the transformation story of Lord of the Rings. And I think that it was applicable in a lot of different ways because ultimately, like, I'm someone that is not just a semen retention or celibacy person. Like, I don't want to talk about just the same thing over and over again, but I want to be able to expand on it. And I know that, there's a certain way to do this. There, again, you have to learn the system to play the system. And what I do with the Godlike Mastery offer as well as the Regal Academy is provide systems to get out of systems. I truly have faith and trust that these systems are the best systems to get out of systems for practically anybody who is actually willing to apply and embody the principles. Because once you do that, you're free. It's kind of the paradox, but this is how I do it, and I'm living proof. I've been on semen retention for years, and life is just getting better and better. I'm in the best shape of my life, not only psychologically and physically, but spiritually. I'm more attuned than ever, and I'm more intuitive than ever, and it's like, at the same time, I'm not the educator, I'm not the master, I'm simply the Godlike Mastery education. So, with that being said, peace, be with you, be blessed. Until next time.